Welcome, everyone, to Build America, the podcast that is capturing the heartbeat of construction. And I am your host, Kerry Smith Buck, owner of Construction News and Review magazine. And we are in for a treat in this episode because we are talking about construction people rather than projects. With us today are Daniel Conaway, Vice President of Operations for Russell, which is a professional services provider and commercial construction company in the Midwest. And also joining us today is Lea Ann Dies, who is the Director of People and Culture for Russell. And Daniel and Lea Ann, thank you so much for joining us today on the topic of how to make sure that your construction candidate is going to be a fit with your company's culture. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you bet. Let's jump right in with it seems like it would vary with the candidate, with the level, the position, and so many other factors. But how do you take a pulse for whether the candidate who's sitting in front of you or virtually is if their work ethic, their goals, their personality is going to be a fit with your company? I'm sure the fact that you have a director of people and culture, I know this is a top priority for Russell as you continue to grow your firm, but what are the steps you take? Is a lot of it, based on a vibe? Is it based on the resume? Tell us more about it. Anyone can
Great
start.
question, Kerry. Yeah, thank you. At Russell, we have, in general, our interview process is comprised of a variety of steps. And we have, within our group, our talent team is made up of 4 individuals. We have a full-time recruiter who her focus is engaging in the conversations with candidates. Her first step is having a phone screening. And she'll have that initial conversation. A lot of times she'll loop in individuals from our operations team to ensure that she and the operations team feel like the person that they're speaking with has the experience that they're looking for. So we'll start with the phone screen, and then if after the conversation, Jill and the team feel like this is a person they would like to engage in another conversation with, we will discuss bringing that person on site, whether that's to our headquarters in Davenport or to one of our other offices in St. Louis or Kansas City. Prior to the in-person interview, we use a tool called Predictive Index to help us identify an individual's preferred working style. And with the Predictive Index, it gives us some insight into, some of the strengths and opportunities for that individual. It helps us identify if that would be a fit within the team. And we're able to generate interview questions based on the results of that Predictive Index. Was an exceptionally helpful tool to give us some insight into that candidate before they even meet with the team in person. And then we have a panel interview that takes place, and depending on the role, there may be a second interview. A lot of times there's just that initial interview, but afterward, the panel will get together and have conversations to identify or discuss if that person is a fit, and if we'll make them the job offer.
Wow, I love the group approach and the collaboration. Daniel, is that something that's important? I know you're VP of operations, so you probably are summoned to be part of that team.
Yeah, absolutely. And having that group, and everybody has a little bit different takeaway from those conversations. That's the interesting piece, because we individually key in on certain things because you're trying to pick up on nuance. And when somebody's answering a question, are they saying a lot of I's or are they saying a lot of we's? Are they team oriented? Are they individually driven? Those kinds of things. So having those additional set of ears, having somebody else to key in and ask follow-up questions that you hadn't thought of because they picked up on some nuance of how a response was made or a comment and how they received it. So it's good to have that additional set of eyes and ears engaged in that conversation, and ultimately the collaboration that goes with that. And I think it's more engaging for that individual. It's more conversational, and we get more out of it as a group.
That makes sense, because I would imagine you have people in both instances. Maybe someone is experience perfect on paper, but then when you talk to them, it's maybe a different impression. And then someone maybe that doesn't have the strongest set of skills, but you feel like once you talk to them, they're capable of teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're in that interview process and when you're targeting those individuals, you're trying to answer 2 questions, and that's, are they a good fit for the culture? Are they a good fit for the role? So you're honing in and trying to ask those specific questions to get what you can out of that feedback.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Lea Ann? Is that kind of the two questions we should be asking?
Yeah, absolutely. I also, one of the pieces that we incorporate into many steps within the team member life cycle, but particularly during the hiring, are questions related to our core values. So a lot of companies, most companies have a set of core values. We're very intentional about making sure that we actually utilize the core values. They're more than just words on a wall, right? So we will include questions related to our core values within that interview process as well, because that commitment to our core values is going to go a long way to ensure a culture fit, both when they're joining Russell and while they're here. We do also incorporate core values in our performance reviews. And in some ways, when we have to make difficult decisions about whether or not a team member stays, we will often use those core values as an anchor. So we're certainly incorporating those in that interview process as an indicator for culture fit.
That makes total sense to me. Is there, if you would weigh soft skills and work ethic and attitude versus technical skills? You're both smiling, so I'm wondering if it's like one of those depends on the person answer, or which do you know, if you had to say which bucket is more important in a candidate?
I love the question. And honestly, it's one that I get out of some of the younger folks. I hear it more out of the young project engineers coming out of school that are looking to get into the industry that necessarily don't have the background and technical experience, and asking the question, what do you value? And the short answer is it's really the soft skills. And we can teach the technical skill. You learn those on the job for the most part, but those are the easier things to teach and train. Those softer skills, a bit more difficult, how somebody interacts with a client and just having the ability to navigate a tough conversation. Some of that is developed along the way, but most of it comes from their personality and how they interact and react. And I think that in this industry, we've all had an experience where we've seen a highly skilled, highly technical individual that really lacked those soft skills, and they can become a cancer in that environment, or they just don't perform well when it comes to the interface with a client or a subcontractor or even the team internally. And those are the individuals that reluctantly you have to separate from, because it's not the environment that we want to cultivate. It's not the culture that we have. So the short answer is really the soft skills are the focus, because we can teach the technical skills.
And I think that must be encouraging for people who are listening who are less experienced, like the Gen Zs who are just coming out with their bachelor's in engineering or in construction management. That is probably encouraging to them because they know that's their bucket isn't quite as full as someone who's got more technical skills. Yeah. Good deal. So if they're I'm sure there's all unique, and you mentioned about the core values being part of the interview process and otherwise, if you're interviewing like for a project manager or project superintendent versus an administrative person or someone in the C-suite, are there just different flavors and nuances to all these interviewing conversations and approaches depending on what level, or if they're in a field position or office position? Is it all customized to what you're looking for?
Yeah, we definitely customize the interview based on the role. We're also able within Predictive Index to create job profiles. What's really helpful about that within the tool is it gives us an opportunity to evaluate if that person would be, based on the results of the Predictive Index, be a fit for that particular role. We don't necessarily exclude someone, but it just gives us some insight and helps us target the questions that we're going to ask that person when they come in for a face-to-face interview. If we're noticing any gaps or areas of discrepancy for what we would expect technically when someone would be selected for that role. And then when we're in the room with that person, we will definitely ask or generate questions that are particular to that role and particular to the skill set that we're looking for or that we need.
Great. Would you agree with that, Daniel?
I think that is very helpful to myself and us, the group that's doing the evaluation. You're trying to glean everything you can to get an insight into the individual and how they work, how they react to situations, what's their personality, and their kind of their baseline default settings as a person, so that you can pair them or match them up in the right environment and make sure that they're fitting within the right role. And that Predictive Index just give a quick reference. It has a kind of a set profile of what you would expect for a project manager or what you would expect for a superintendent. And you look for those markers when you get those results. But if there isn't alignment, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not the right candidate or they can't perform. It just means that it helps us ask some specific questions to see how they react to that, or how they'll best fit within the organization, the position that we're trying to put them into.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think, as much as I'm sure it would be stressful if there wasn't a fit, there's nothing like, I know, being the entrepreneurial person, I've gone to work in a desk job, and it has not worked. And I wish that I was grateful, would be grateful as a candidate to know that there's some of that evaluation going on, because whether you're the candidate or the hire, you spend so much of your time at work, you want it to be the right fit.
It's great to know it in getting those results and seeing somebody that are they an independent person, or do they require structure, those kinds of things. Again, it's just another indicator when you're putting them in an environment, whether or not they're going to succeed in that group. If you've got a type A personality with somebody that's a bit more passive, and your leader is that passive person, you've got to understand those personalities so that you can better manage them and set them up for success. I think one of the things that I like that Russell does is team assimilations. Once we get people on board to kind of work through and navigate those personalities. And Lea Ann, I don't know if you want to dive into that. I think we just had one yesterday.
That'd be great to just make sure I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, we have on our team, within the talent team, we have a senior talent development specialist. And she focuses her efforts and her time on working directly with individual team members if they're navigating different situations, whether it's stress management or conflict resolution. But then part of the role is also focused on supporting teams. And for the most part, our teams will come together for an assimilation that includes project managers, project engineers, project coordinators, superintendents for projects over a certain dollar value. And at the same time, if we have a group that has a new leader, she will facilitate new leader assimilation. And those are opportunities to bring the team together for about a 2 to 3 hour window, leveraging the information that we've gleaned from the predictive index from that hiring phase. So we're able to really use that tool even throughout that team member cycle here within Russell. But then she'll bring the team together to talk about, to identify each other's styles, and to talk about, yesterday in particular, we put it on a team map, and there was a set of quadrants, and one of the quadrants was empty. So we talked about with the team, okay, what might this represent? What might be a challenge area, and what might be an opportunity to help us ensure that we're a more balanced team? The assimilations are extremely effective. They give that new leader, in the case of new leader assimilations, an opportunity to get to know their team, and it gives the team an opportunity to get to know their leader, and really helps alleviate some of that tension that might be caused by the stories we tell ourselves based on how someone interacts with it. It could just be a preferred working style. And so when we have that awareness, there's always going to be conflict, and conflict is okay, but it really helps navigate through that conflict more quickly, because in construction, it's all about time management. So making sure we're able to get back to the issue at hand and getting back to the job as quickly as possible.
Oh, that's awesome. What would you say to anyone who is listening to this discussion, who maybe is familiar with HR or talent acquisition, but not AEC industry, not in the construction industry? I think you just hit upon one of those components, Lea Ann, that it's so fast paced, but what makes talent acquisition unique and you can broaden it to architecture, engineering too, in the construction. What are the unique factors of keeping the right people?
Yeah, definitely time pressure. Time constraint is the biggest. I have experience working in the energy industry as well, and this was a number of years ago already, but just do not recall it being as fast-paced as in construction. That is the time pressure's biggest factor, is meeting people today or right now, and just the challenge. We've all heard of the workforce challenge and the number of people available for the number of roles. There's a little bit of a shortage there, so that also compounds. But I would, above anything, from my perspective, it's that time pressure and getting people in the door as quickly as possible. It used to be, so when I started in HR and recruitment, a 4 to 6 week window for hiring. Someone would apply, and then and now it's as quick as a week. Now it just goes very, very quickly. So that time has compounded, and the expectation has increased in addition to that time pressure.
And I can't imagine every job is critical, but in construction, it's so high risk anyway. So you've got to quickly find the best person, but not put their coworkers at risk or that person at risk if they wind up not making that strong of a learner. That's got to be a whole different, unless that's part of that index that gauges that the part that is technical or the ability to learn technical things quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily gauge the technical aspect so much. It's more of those, I like to call them power skills, right? Formerly known as soft skills. It really gauges more of the power skills and someone's opportunity or ability to collaborate, to, if they're a leader, lead with empathy, how they're able to navigate ambiguity, some of those aspects more fun than the technical side. But in addition to the assessments, one of the other tools that we use, particularly for someone that will be in a leadership role, is the EQI 2.0. Really helps us identify potential leaders' ability to kind of lead with that emotional intelligence, because we know emotional intelligence is also a huge component of success. A couple of those different tools that we utilize in order to ensure culture fit.
Wow. Because I'm sure that it's not inexpensive to bring someone on. We didn't really talk about that part yet, but you've got very little time. You've got to pay them well, but just the process of all, I don't know if there's a range of what it costs even to bring on someone in a construction firm. It's got to be tens of thousands.
There's definitely a range, and that price goes up in the instances where we work with a partner and a third-party recruitment firm, right? So that definitely enhances. But using tools like LinkedIn Recruit has a decent dollar amount to that as well, which is an annual license to be able to search out the multitude of individuals that are on LinkedIn. There's a pretty hefty fee to that. So yes, recruitment is not inexpensive for use of a double negative.
Yeah.
I think ideally we'd like to do that organically and grow the group we have within, to develop and elevate them as they grow.
Yeah.
But beyond that, leveraging the people in our organization for referral to provide us with names that they've worked with in the past or have interacted with. Those are usually our strongest candidates. So if we can leverage that as much as we can, that helps. We offer a referral bonus. I'm sure a lot of companies do. So that helps in that mode. But yeah, certainly still also leveraging those third-party recruiting agencies to help fill the coffers, because there's a lot of need out there, a shortage of candidates in the construction industry currently.
So really it's like a pipeline, almost diverse pipelines of where you're looking or mining for the best people.
Yeah, it is definitely. And piggybacking off of what Daniel said, our referral program is the highest source for us for bringing in new talent. So our team member referral is highly utilized, is very much valued, and we would much rather incentivize our team members to help us find talent. So
I would think that really plays into the culture fit too, because they would already be very much aware, if they're your work team now, of what the culture is and if their friend, their relative is a match.
yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. I could talk to you both all day. I told you this was going to be an interesting one, and it sure was. But I just appreciate so much Russell's Daniel Conaway, Vice President of Operations, and Lea Ann Dies, Director of People and Culture, just from Russell being with us today to talk through this. And I thank you for being part of this whole month of July series of talent. And we'll be archiving these episodes as well of Build America, because I'm sure that people will be in your shoes as well and will want to go back and learn from that. Thank you so much to both of you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kerry. We appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. And I do want you to come on again sometime soon when you have time.
Sounds great. Thank you.